Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadanti Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Gurun Shri Utapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shcha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunatanitam Tam Sajivam Satvairam Svavadudam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Raghunath Lalita Shri Vishyakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanushtute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanjakalpatarubhyascha Kirpa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna.
Jai Hari Bol. So, Shashwin, if you can do the Sanskrit for 33.
Hare Krishna. Atta duragatan sauri Kauravan virahaturan Sanivarkya dridam snigdan Prayat swarnagi garim priyai. Hare Krishna.
And the translation?
Out of profound affection for Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, who were the Kuru dynasty, accompanied him a considerable distance to see him off. They were overwhelmed with the thought of future separation. The Lord, however, persuaded them to return home, and he proceeded towards Dwaraka with his dear companions.
Right. Thank you very much, Haribol. So the translation to text 34 and 35. O Shaunaka, the Lord then proceeded towards Guru Jangala, Panchala, Surasena, the land on the bank of the river Yamuna, Brahmavarta, Kurukshetra, Matsya, Sarasvata, the province of the desert, and the land of scanty water. After crossing these provinces, he gradually reached the Sovira and Abira provinces. Then, west of these, reached Dwarka at last. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The provinces passed over by the Lord in those days are differently named. but the direction given is sufficient to indicate that he traveled through Delhi, Punjab, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Saurashtra, and Gujarat, and at last reached his home province at Dwarka. We do not gain any profit simply by researching the analogous provinces of those days up to now, but it appears that the desert of Rajasthan and the provinces of scanty water like Madhya Pradesh were present even 5,000 years ago. The theory of soil experts that the desert developed in recent years is not supported by the statements of Bhagavatam. We may leave the matter for expert geologists to research, because the changing universe has different phases of geological development. We are satisfied that the Lord has now reached his own province, Dwarka Dham, from the Kuru provinces. Kurukshetra continues to exist since the Vedic age, and it is sheer foolishness when interpreters ignore or deny the existence of Kurukshetra. Verse 36, translation. On his journey through these provinces, he was welcomed, worshipped, and given various presentations. In the evening, in all places, the Lord suspended his journey to perform evening rites. This was regularly observed after sunset. Purport. It is said here that the Lord observed the religious principles regularly while he was on the journey. There are certain philosophical speculations that even the Lord is under the obligations of fruitive action, but actually this is not the case. He does not depend on the action of any good or bad work. Since the Lord is absolute, everything done by him is good for everyone. But when he descends on earth, he acts for the protection of the devotees and for the annihilation of the impious devotees, non-devotees. Although he has no obligatory duty, still he does everything that others may follow. That is the way of factual teaching. One must act properly himself and teach the same to others. Otherwise, no one will accept one's blind teaching. He is himself the awarder of fruitive results. He is self-sufficient, and yet he acts according to the rulings of the revealed scripture in order to teach us the process. If he does not do so, the common man may go wrong. But in the advanced stage, when one can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, one does not try to imitate him. This is not possible. The Lord in human society does what is the duty for everyone, but sometimes he does something extraordinary and not to be imitated by the living being. His acts of evening prayer, as stated herein, must be followed by the living being. But it is not possible to follow the mountain lifting or the dancing with the gopis. One cannot imitate the sun, which can exhaust water even from a filthy place. The most powerful can do something which is all good, but our imitation of such acts will put us into endless difficulty. Therefore, in all actions, the experienced guide, the spiritual master, who is the manifested mercy of the Lord, should always be consulted, and the path of progress will be assured. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. So we see from verse 33, although there's no purport, it just struck me, out of profound affection for Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, who were of the Kuru dynasty, accompanied him a considerable distance to see him off. They were overwhelmed with the thought of future separation. The Lord, however, persuaded them to return home, and he proceeded towards Dwarka with his dear companions. If we remember, when Krishna was leaving Vrindavan, and the gopis were just stunned, and they followed him some distance, and Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, they were just absolutely stunned. We know those descriptions from Krishna book. The gopis, including Mother Yashoda, they left the milk boiling on the cooker and just completely forgot about it. They were like that for weeks on end, just absolutely stunned in the separation of their separation from Lord Krishna. And this is also the mood of our sampradaya, particularly with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We serve in the mood of vipralamba. We don't so much serve in the mood of union, because the mood of Lord Chaitanya was that of vipralamba, service and separation. There is, of course, service in union, sambhog. In fact, Mahaprabhu, he conjoined the two moods, but ultimately his mood is one of vipralamba, or service and separation, which even Radharani, when we read the Krishna book, we see how Radharani was actually she's sitting on Krishna's lap, and she sees the reflection of Krishna in the necklace around Krishna's neck. And she, because of the gopis, as we know the whole story from Krishna book, when the gopis, they just cursed Lord Brahma. Why did you make these eyes in such a way that they constantly blink, or forced to blink? And in this way, we're separated from the vision of Lord Krishna, who's standing there before us. So they're cursing. They're cursing Lord Brahma because they don't have the opportunity to see Krishna for that momentary blinking period of time. So Mahaprabhu, he came in the mood of Srimati Radharani. He had a golden complexion. Srimati Radharani is gold, Krishna is blue, blackish blue. But Mahaprabhu, he came in the mood of Srimati Radharani, in this mood of separation. So, of course, there is union. Ultimately, what is the point of separation if there is not going to? But there is that hope of union, and this is our mood. We're living in this hope of union with Krishna, and this is our right. I was listening to Srila Prabhupada today, and Prabhupada was explaining this very point. How can we worship in Krishna using what appears to be material objects like wood or stone or brass or marble or whatever the case may be? Prabhupada was explaining, people criticize us of being idol worshippers. So, but this is not the case. The Lord can manifest through any medium he likes. Just like in the case of Lord Jagannath, he manifested in this very unusual form, the unfinished deity who was carved, and the arms are just sticking out because the mood is just one of absolute and total bliss. As you all know, perhaps in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Ancha Leela, in the final days of Mahaprabhu in Puri, when he was just absolutely craving this mood of Srimati Radharani, where he just couldn't take it anymore. He's literally walking through walls where the devotees were keeping him almost like in prison for his own safety, because he would just go wandering and he would get damage on his body and injuries, and so many calamities occurred when the devotees were not watching Mahaprabhu. So they kept him almost in a locked room, guarded by Swarup Damodar, so he wouldn't escape and go off and injure himself. But one evening he went through the wall, literally just went through the wall and wandered down to the beach. And he was immersed in this mood of Srimati Radharani, of horripilation. All these big lumps would appear in his body. His body literally melted into this pool of gold, and he fell into the ocean. And he was inadvertently recovered by a local fisherman who just caught Mahaprabhu in his net. And simply the touch of Mahaprabhu on the fisherman's body The fisherman, he again went into another mood of horripilation and ecstasy and pools of ecstasy, and he was melting. And as was running around the beach like a madman, forgetting that he had even touched Mahaprabhu. He wasn't even aware that he had touched Mahaprabhu. And he was running around like a lunatic. And Swarup Damodar saw the fisherman in this pools of ecstasy. And Swarup Damodar knew straight away, just by looking at him, that he must have come across Mahaprabhu. And that's how they recovered Mahaprabhu and brought him back to the cottage where they were staying. And he recovered and his mood came back. And we saw this, I didn't personally, but it's recorded in the Leela Amrita and the interviews I did for the Leela Amrita. So many devotees gave me interviews. Of course, not all of the interviews went into the Leela Amrita. They had to be edited and paginated in the chronological order. That's why we later produced the Prabhupada Nectar books to put into the Prabhupada Nectar books, those short stories, Leelas of Srila Prabhupada, which didn't fit in the chronological order of the anecdotal stories from Prabhupada's time with us. And so many devotees, they told me at varying times, and even not even related to each other, how Prabhupada himself would go into these pools of ecstasy and just cry. There was one devotee, he left his body yesterday, actually. Narayan Prabhu, senior Prabhupada disciple. He made the first Vyasasan, the first ornate Vyasasan for Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles. And he built the first rat cart, the ornate rat cart with the moving turret that could go up and down. Prabhupada praised him so much for doing that. He was an engineer devotee, and he made this absolutely enormous Vyasasan, decorated with gold filigree. Narayan Prabhu, unfortunately, he departed yesterday for, I would hope, Goloka Vrindavan. And he was telling me when the Beatles met the devotees in London in 1969, and they made a recording which we play every morning, Govindam Adipurasham Tamaham Bhajami, sung by Yamuna Devi. And the devotees sent a copy of the album to Srila Prabhupada, who was staying in Los Angeles at the time. And the devotees were playing it. We weren't playing it in front of the deity at that time. It simply wasn't done. But the devotees were playing it in a room somewhere else, listening to it before giving it to Prabhupada. They wanted to check it out to see how it was. And Prabhupada heard it, and Prabhupada just immediately went into floods of tears. He knew then, at that point, when he heard that record, that his movement was on the way, that it was finally taking foothold in the West. And when you hear Yamuna singing that, which was produced by George Harrison, that record is just the sound vibration for that time in 1969 in the West. It was unheard of. And the Hare Krishna mantra, which was on the reverse side of that record, Govindam Adipurasham, that was the Mahamantra, which was number 6, number 1 in the charts for 6 weeks in a row in England. It was on top of the pops. And the devotees appeared on pop charts and stations all over Europe. And this was phenomenal. They went to Amsterdam, they went to Berlin, they went to Paris, not only in London, but all over Europe. The devotees were sought after to appear on so many TV stations to advertise the Mahamantra, which just a few weeks previously was unknown and unheard of. But because Shyamasundar Prabhu met George Harrison, and he gave him the first album that Prabhupada recorded previously in New York, which somehow or other made its way to George Harrison long before the devotees got to London. And George Harrison got that album, and when he finally met Shamasunder, he said, "Where have you guys been? I've been waiting for you for such a long time." And that's how the relationship started. And George Harrison, as you also probably know, uh, Prabhupada Shamasunder was going to see George Harrison one day. He had arranged a meeting with him. And Prabhupada said, "Can you please ask him if he could pay for the printing of the Krishna book?" And Shamasunder said, "Well, our relationship with George Harrison is so far has been that we never asked him for money. He's helped us in so many ways, but our relationship is based on the fact that we've never." And I think Prabhupada, it might break the relationship. He'll think that we're like so many other people and groups who are just want to be with him just to get his money. And Prabhupada said, "No, no, no, no. You please, you ask. Krishna will arrange." So he went to see George Harrison, and he was just about to leave because he'd been with George Harrison for hours on end, but he couldn't bring himself to ask. So he said, "Well, I'm here on Prabhupada's order, so I have to, I have to figure out some way to ask him." So just as he asked George Harrison, Harrison he was beginning to build up. The anger in his face was beginning to build up, and just as he was about to explode and refuse the money to Shamasunder, this huge bolt of lightning just appeared out of nowhere. It was a clear blue sky day, not a cloud in the sky. This bolt of lightning came out of nowhere, and this huge thunderclap, just boom, and the electricity was broken and cut off for a few seconds. The whole house was in darkness. And George said to Shamasunder, "Well, I guess we have our answer." And he gave Shamasunder the money to print the Krishna book, which at the time was, £12,000, which is a lot of money in 1969. That's why George Harrison, he's got an introduction. Prabhupada gave him the opportunity to write the introduction to the Krishna book, an uninitiated devotee. Can you imagine? And he wanted to take initiation from Prabhupada. Prabhupada refused. He said, "No." He said, "You should stay in your position. If you join formally and move into the temple and shave your head, people will say that, we have controlled you somehow or other." And I said, "But Prabhupada, I want to have a devotee name." And Prabhupada, Prabhupada said to him, "You already have a devotee name. Your name is Hari's son. You are the son of Hari." So that was the end of that. And Prabhupada considered him his disciple, although he was not formally initiated by Prabhupada in the sense of given diksha or nam or anything like that. But still, Prabhupada accepted him. And when he left his body from cancer in 2001, he was surrounded by the devotees who were chanting, and he had a very glorious departure. So we are so fortunate, all of us. We have come in contact with the pure devotee, with the Mahabhagavat, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, who has spread the glories of Krishna and Mahaprabhu all over the world, introduced the chanting of the Mahamantra, the Jagannath Rath Yatra festivals in every town and village practically on the planet. You recently had a festival in Kisumu where everybody relished the association of the devotees. I mean, who would have thought, even when I was there, who would have thought that we would have a Rath Yatra in Kisumu? I mean, it's just incredible. We have Rath Yatras everywhere, in Mombasa, Nairobi, and Kampala, and all over Africa, all over Asia, all over Europe, America, South America. I mean, this is just absolutely incredible. Prabhupada was with us in the West, at least, for 11 years. And it opened so many temples and projects and farms and gurukuls and everything all over the world. 108 temples Prabhupada opened. I can't even maintain my own house, just one little house in England. Prabhupada maintained 108 temples all over the world, tens of thousands of followers. It was just a phenomenal achievement, absolutely phenomenal. And we're a part of that. And I understand that Mother Kirtika is going to Braj soon. Jai, very nice. And for the first time, which is absolutely wonderful. So she'll have the opportunity to immerse in these pastimes of Lord Krishna in Braj and go to visit as many places as possible on the journey, which is absolutely wonderful. I remember when I first went to Dwarka, it was just stunning. I couldn't believe that I was there. Here I am. I read about it in Krishna book, read about it in Bhagavatam, so much about Dwarka and Lord Krishna's place, and it was just amazing. The mood and the feeling, you just the soul. You can really connect with the mood of Prabhupada when he has given us so much. So I'd like to read a little bit more of the purport. We were discussing yesterday with Mother Kirtika about how last week rather in the class how Prabhupada has actually woven so many shlokas into his purports. And we did this with Satrup Maharaj in the times when I was at Gita Nagari Press. Satrup Maharaj wrote a book about this, how Prabhupada has woven so many shlokas directly into his purports. When you analyze them, that's why Prabhupada says we should scrutinizingly study his books, particularly Bhagavad Gita. And like we say, the purport to verse 36, it's been a very wonderful chapter. This whole chapter has been absolutely wonderful. There's so much. I mean, every single page of the Bhagavatam is never a dull moment. And then, of course, you'll have the next chapter, which is even more enlightening, Lord Krishna's entrance into Dwarka, which we're going to start with the next speaker tomorrow. And I mean, it's an ocean of devotion with no commotion and nothing but promotion to the spiritual world. That's all we have to enjoy. That's all we have to look forward to. In this age of Kali, with the world in chaos, here we are discussing the pastimes of the Lord. What could be better? So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying, it is said here that the Lord observed the religious principles regularly while he was on the journey. There are certain philosophical speculations that even the Lord is under the obligations or fruit of action, but actually this is not the case. He does not depend on the action of any good or bad work. So you see in the next line, Prabhupada is writing in italics for emphasis. Since the Lord is absolute, everything done by him is good for everyone. Isn't that good? Everything done by the Lord is good for everyone, not just for the person who is directly connected with that activity of the Lord. It's good for everyone. Even killing. How many, I mean, when Lord Krishna, when he killed Kamsa, just imagine, he's still a boy, he's just a teenager. He goes to Mathura from Vrindavan. Kamsa has caused so many problems to the residents of Braj, sent so many demons to disturb the residents of Braj, which is a maha aparad. You cannot get more of an aparad than that. But Kamsa was so envious, and this is the son of his sister, his own sister, and he tried to kill her just on the day of her wedding. I mean, of course, he was provoked a little bit by Narada Muni, who always does this little rasabas thing, but that's another story. And so Krishna went with Balaram to Mathura to chastise Kamsa and confront him about all this. And he drags Kamsa out of his big high chair down into the arena and wrestles him and just kills him on the spot. Kamsa's the king. He's the big boss. Everybody is cowering in fear of Kamsa. And Krishna just drags him and just kills him on the spot without any effort at all. Just like the way it's described, the way Lord Nrsingadev killed Hiranyakashipu, like you crush an insect. Hiranyakashipu was not only in charge of this planet, he was in charge of the universe. He had kicked all the Devatas, Lord Indra, everyone, he kicked them all out of their residences, and he was the boss of the universe. And he was just crushed like an insect. So we say, when we take shelter of Krishna, we have that. So Prabhupada is saying here, since the Lord is absolute, everything done by him is good for everyone. So we should be careful when we're reading these purports. When Prabhupada puts this emphasis in italics, then there's a special note that is a reason why Prabhupada has done this. There's a reason why Prabhupada has done everything in his books. Prabhupada said on so many occasions, not only once, he said, I do not understand how I have written these purports. They're not written by me. Prabhupada picks up his book. Prabhupada would read his own books day and night, long after they were printed, and be absolutely ecstatic about what he himself had written. He said, these were not written by me. These were written by Krishna. I'm just the instrument, and I just dictated it, and my disciples, they did the typing, and the books were printed. But the books were written by Krishna. So when we're reading these purports, we're actually reading not only from the pure devotee, we're reading directly Krishna's words himself. So the next line, Mother Kirtika, she pointed out very astutely, the next line is which verse, Mother Kirtika?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can I request Shashwin to say this? Because he's just learned the shloka in the children's class.
Very nice, please, Shashwin.
Shashwin, are you there? Why does the Lord descend? Shashwin? Hare Krishna. Why does the Lord come to the earth? We did 2 shlokas. Which are they?
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bharata abhyuttanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham.
Very good.
Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavani yuge yugi.
Excellent. Well done. So you see, this is where Prabhupada has woven this direct shloka into this purport. It's almost like it's lifted and been translated into English, and Prabhupada put it down on the page. Although he has no obligatory duty, still he does everything so that others may follow. So what would be a verse for that one? Can anybody think of a verse for that? He does everything so others may follow. Can I give a suggestion? Yad yad acharati shreshtas. You know that one? Tad tad evi taro janaha. Sayat paramanam kurute lokos tad anuvartate. That's Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 21. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever stanzas he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. And I found a few more verses in this particular purport, but it's like that on almost every one. And you know, that's why it's great to read. It's great that you have these classes, and it's great for me because I have been quite slack in my reading of the Bhagavatam over the years, because familiarity breeds contempt. And it's a malignancy, and that you become familiar with the books, and then when you start to read them at first, and you're reading avidly, and you can't get enough, and then you think, oh yeah, I know that, I've read that before, blah 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 blah. But we learn something every single time we pick up these books, and dive in and scrutinizingly study. That's the difference between just reading and scrutinizingly study. He is himself the awarder of fruit of results. He is self-sufficient, and yet he acts according to the rulings of the revealed scripture in order to teach us the process. If he does not do so, the common man may go wrong. That was just the verse we did from Bhagavad Gita 3:21. But in the advanced stage, when one can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, one does not try to imitate him. This is not possible. So, you know that verse, what is it, chapter 4, 9. Jan Makarma Chame Divyam. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So when when we reach that stage, that's probably the saying here, but in the advanced stage, when one can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, here's another verse, again woven into the purport of the Bhagavatam shloka. One does not try to imitate him, but understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and disappearance. The Lord in human society does what it is the duty of everyone, but sometimes he does something extraordinary and not to be imitated by the living being. His acts of evening prayer, as stated herein, must be followed by the living being, but it is not possible to follow his mountain lifting or dancing with the gopis. This is a fact. You think, as a small boy, remember, Lord Krishna was a very small boy when he lifted Govardhan Hill. And it was all, okay, it's a huge thing to lift, to lift a mountain. But how did he lift the mountain? He lifted the mountain on the pinky of his left hand and just supported it like that for a week. And Indra tried his best to send all these huge, voluminous clouds and clouds and clouds of rain and floods and thunder and lightning and everything. Nobody was bothered. Everybody was safe because they took shelter of Krishna, even though they weren't aware. In Vrindavan, they're not aware of the fact that Krishna is God. They were just so much in love with Krishna. Krishna told his father, why do you want to worship Indra? Forget about this Indra business. Let's just worship the cows. So his father, because he's in love with his son, there's nobody in Vrindavan thinking, oh, this is Bhagavan. It's just a young boy. But everybody was so much immersed in love of Krishna, they did whatever he said, just to please him. So they stopped all their havan, all their yagya, all their sacrifices, everything, and they did what Krishna said, and they worshipped Govardhan Hill. And Indra got uptight, and he comes and he did what he did. But the same with Lord Brahma in Brajalila. Lord Brahma couldn't conceive that this is God, this is Vishnu. So he stole the cows and the cowherd boys, and we know that also that story from Krishna book, and took them away and hid them in the cave. And Krishna manifested himself, the same form of every cowherd boy. And when they all went back home in the evening to their mothers just were just embracing their sons like anything, because this was Krishna himself in that form. Krishna can do anything. So it doesn't mean because, Krishna goes out and he does this or that or the other, that, we can just imitate him. That's what Prabhupada is saying here. We can't dance with 16,108 girls in the forest in the middle of the night and be simultaneously dancing with each and every girl simultaneously. Today I was hearing from Prabhupada where he was saying that you're going to come across that later on in this particular Bhagavatam. I don't want to spoil the story, but a little bit of it was Prabhupada saying how when Krishna left the planet and finally departed, and Arjuna, he was in charge of protecting the remaining wives of Krishna. And as you know, 16,000 108. It's a big job. And so one day Arjuna is out, and he was attacked by some simple village cowherds, and they got into a fight, and they took the wives of Krishna, and Arjuna lost the fight. So Arjuna was just bewildered by this. How's because of the departure of Lord Krishna, everything changed. But Prabhupada says in his lecture on that verse, he said that if we simply take shelter of Bhagavad Gita and the instructions and teachings in Bhagavad Gita, it is not different, exactly the same as if we were present before Krishna himself, just like Arjuna. He said, don't think that because Arjuna was present before Krishna, that he had an advantage over us. I was saying that directly. No, we have the same advantage as Arjuna. We can take shelter of Krishna's instructions from Bhagavad Gita exactly the same way. Arjuna is representing us. He's asking these questions, questioning Krishna. He's not just blindly following. Arjuna is asking very heavy, direct questions to Krishna. He's not just, oh, yes, 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 whatever you say, I accept. No, he's challenging. Finally, he reaches a stage where he accepts Krishna as his guru, and he's the disciple, but still he's asking very pertinent questions as to how is this possible, how does that work, how does this work, so on and so forth. He's not just blindly accepting whatever. And that's another verse that we find in the Gita. Tadvidi pranipratena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth with their eyes, seen the truth. So this is the qualification. Prabhupada says in the last part, therefore in all actions, the experienced guide, the spiritual master, who is the manifested mercy of the Lord, should always be consulted, and the path of progress will be assured. The spiritual master must always be consulted, and the path of progress will be assured. I felt that was that same verse, Tadvidi, again woven into that purport. So that's about, 4 verses we found in just one purport. And for me, the way I see it, I come across purports like that all the time, where Prabhupada has woven a particular verse that I happen to know or I'm familiar with or I remember, and then I say, oh, wow, that looks familiar. And then I go and look it up. I'm reading a purport, and I go and look up another book, then I get absorbed in that, and then that says something that makes me want to look up something else, and then before you know it, you're reading the whole Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Bhagavad Gita 24 hours a day. It's wonderful. It's great. But we have to get into that mood. We have to absorb ourselves in that mood and just take full advantage of every opportunity we get. Like we were discussing previously, 24 hours in a day, 8 hours of sleeping. So 8 hours is practically speaking wasted. One devotee, he was temple president. His name is Bhaktadas, and he was temple president in San Diego. Very early days. He was initiated in 1969. Busy temple, really busy temple. Dozens, if not hundreds of devotees in that temple, and he was organizing everything, the Sankirtan, the Prasadam, the deity worship, sending devotees out on book distribution and Harinam, and this was fired up days. Devotees were joining in droves. Every day somebody new would come back. Vishnu Jan would go out chanting with a harmonium strapped around his neck. Vishnu Jan Swami, literally strapped around his neck, harmonium, full-size harmonium strapped around his neck, chanting in Los Angeles 12 hours a day. His kirtans are famous. He made hundreds of devotees, hundreds. This one Vishnu Jan Swami made hundreds of devotees. And his kirtans, if you look them up, they're just absolutely from the spiritual world. So Bhaktadas, he was telling me that a good friend of mine, we traveled to Puri together, the only time I went to Puri, and he guided me around. He'd been going to Puri for years. So he guided me around, took me to all the places where Mahaprabhu went. It was so nice to have a guide like that. But he said he went to Prabhupada one day when Prabhupada visited San Diego. He said, Srila Prabhupada, you know, this temple is going 24 hours a day, and there's so many things going on, this and this and this and this and this. Sometimes, Srila Prabhupada, I don't get a chance to finish my rounds. What am I going to do? And Prabhupada said, how long do you sleep? He said, I can't sleep barely more than 2 or 3 hours a day. If I'm lucky. Prabhupada said, okay, sleep less. So this is, you have to finish your rounds. You remember when Prabhupada started off in 66 in New York, and the standard in the Gaudiya Math from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj to all of his disciples, Prabhupada included, the standard minimum is 64 rounds a day. So Prabhupada introduced that standard in New York because that's the standard that he knows. All his godbrothers are chanting 64 rounds a day. Prabhupada was chanting 64 rounds a day. So that's the standard, that's what he knows. So the devotees, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. It was impossible. So they came back to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, we can't do this. It's just not. Prabhupada said, okay, 32, minimum, 32. I give you some grace. So they went and tried the 32, failed, completely failed. So then Prabhupada said, okay, 16, Bas. Absolutely no less than 16 rounds a day. That's it. Focused rounds, serious rounds, concentrated rounds, quality rounds, 16 rounds a day. Don't come back to me. That's the minimum. So that was the standard. That became the standard. So if we can't chant our rounds, or we can't find the time to do quality rounds, Prabhupada's instruction is sleep less. And Bhaktidas, poor Bhaktidas, he was sleeping 2 or 3 hours a day, exhausted, 24 hours. I know that kind of temple. I've been in those temples. I've managed some of those temples. It's good to have headache for the spiritual master. It's good to have headache for Krishna. It's good to have tension and anxiety for Krishna. I don't envy the managers of temples anywhere. I mean, I'm no longer a manager. It's no longer my seva. I'm in a different mood these days. But I have the deepest sympathy for the managers in our society who have a huge burden of responsibility. But look at the benefit we're all going to get from that little. Just a little seva. And Krishna, when the Brahmin went to see Lord Krishna in Dwarka, remember, with the bag of broken chipped rice, and he was even hiding it behind his back. He didn't want Krishna to see it. Krishna says, "What do you have there? What nice nectar have you brought for me?" So no, it's okay. I just my wife, she gave me this. She forced me to come. It's always the woman, isn't it? So she forced me to come and beg you for something. No, I want to see what you brought, Krishna says. And then he grabs the bag of sweet rice from Sudama Brahman, and Krishna starts to eat it. Oh, this is absolutely wonderful. Dry, broken, chipped rice. This is nectar. Krishna was in ecstasy. And Krishna just devouring this bag and Lakshmi had to intervene. He said, no, stop. You can't eat anymore. If you eat anymore, you'll never be able to repay him. And this is broken, just like Putana. Putana, she was given the mercy of Krishna because Krishna treated her as his mother. She was trying to kill him. But because she allowed Krishna to suck her breast, Krishna was thinking, oh, she's approaching me in the mood of mother. It was only later when Krishna started sucking her breast, he realized this is poison. So then he killed her and he took their life heirs out. But his initial reaction was, she's approaching me as a mother. So then he reciprocated with that. And Krishna, she got liberation. She got moksha. She's a demon, the Putana witch. She was given moksha. What to speak of our devotees who are engaged in all these huge, big services for Krishna, and small services, the street sweeper, the one who's cleaning the dishes, the one who's washing the pots, the one who's cleaning the toilets, as I've done in so many temples around the world. And the one who sweeps the floor and mops the floor and makes the garlands, not only the one who's on the altar doing the puja. We all have something to contribute. So we shouldn't be discouraged. It's a burden. It's a huge anxiety, but we should see it through, and it will be ultimately to our benefit. So it's nearly time. If there are any questions or comments, please, I'd like to hear what anybody has to say. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Monavrat. I love Monavrat. It's my favorite. Jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I think Arya Govind Prabhuji has a
Arya
question.
Govind Prabhu. Haribol. Jai.
Hare Krishna. Dandavata Pranam, Prabhu.
Right, Dandavata.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for sharing the nectar, and then Prabhupada's different moods. So I mean, interwoven into his purports.
Right.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
We were taken into Prabhupada's Leelamrita book literally, and also you shared many examples of many different temples with the devotees, and Prabhupada's earlier movement when he started, and then it was really wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Right. Thank you, Prabhu. Jai.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji, we would have, at least I would have never seen this. Reading the purport, it is just reading the purport. But today you showed us a new way of reading the purport, referring to other books that we should have read or we are reading. So thank you. It was really insightful.
Jai. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? If there are no questions.
Hare Krishna,
Yes.
Prabhuji and Mataji. I just wanted to add to what Prabhuji said about Srila Prabhupada's purports, because I read a fair amount of his purports at one time, and I was totally baffled by the amount of information and the type of information that he shared in these purports. And I thought, this has to be divine, it is coming from the Lord. So that I thought so too, Prabhu. And Srila Prabhupada does say that it is written by Krishna. I firmly believe that. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Jai. Thank you very much. Yes, it's a fact. Even now, it's like reading Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's English. It's a little complex. It's a very high level English, almost Shakespearean. And Srila Prabhupada said, don't even dream of touching or editing the Brahma Samhita. The devotees wanted to edit the Brahma Samhita to bring the Brahma Samhita to modern day English. And Prabhupada said, no, just let them just read. And I was the same when I started reading Prabhupada's books. First of all, I couldn't read them. I didn't understand what was going on. It was just like a maze to me until gradually something begins to sink in, because it's a new world. We're dealing with the spiritual world. We're not dealing with the mundane. We're not dealing with this earthly sphere, this earthly planet. We're dealing with the spiritual world. So when the only thing in our life that we're used to is dealing with the Gramya Katha of the marketplace. That's all we know until we meet Srila Prabhupada and I encounter his philosophy. So to compare it, there is no comparison. There is no comparison. It's a different world. We can't make the comparison. As Prabhupada says here in this purport, in the advanced stage, when one can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, one does not try to imitate him. This is not possible. So we can, in that sense also, we can't just imitate or compare what Prabhupada is writing and compare it with our experiences in life. It's a completely different experience. Totally different experience. We're dealing directly with the spiritual world. So it's an insight into Gopi Bharta Kamalayor. It's an insight into this world, a different world entirely. It's just like when you look into a microscope and you see all the activities that are going on under a microscope, you cannot see with the naked eye. Or you're an astronomer, you look at the stars through a telescope, it's a completely different world. But this is going beyond that, beyond the microscope and beyond the telescope. This is going a purport, direct tunnel into the spiritual world, which all we have to do is just open our eyes and it's all there. It's there for the taking. It's there for us. Prabhupada has literally handed the spiritual world to us on a plate in the form of prasadam. And he said, well, if nothing else, you can eat your way back to Godhead. You know, so, I mean, what more could we ask for? Everything is there. Yeah, you're right, Mataji. It's like, it's an amazing revelation. I mean, I deal with my mind all the time. I say, well, yeah, I'll pick up the book tomorrow or in an hour or maybe later. But then when I pick it up and then that purport leads me to other purports. Oh, I remember reading something. What book was I reading? And I say, oh yeah, this one. And then I pick up that book. And before I know where I am, I've got 10 books on my table because one is linking one to the other. It's just an amazing Leela that Prabhupada has given us, and we're a part of it. We're in it. So let's go for it. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda. So let's be a part of these Gaura Bhakta Brindas and just chant and dance and eat our way back to Godhead. What more could we ask for? It's there for the taking. It's like biting into the gulab. No matter you bite into the gulab on the top or the bottom or the left or the right, it's all sweet. Just go for it. It's all a gulab, one big gulab. So let's try to overcome our anxieties, overcome all the trials and tribulations that we go through. It's not because we're devotees we don't have problems. Of course we do. We'd be silly to think otherwise. But let us not allow that material atmosphere to encroach on our spiritual development, on our spiritual aspiration, because if we stick with the process, it's guaranteed success. Declare it boldly, O Arjun, my devotee never perishes, never. That's quite a statement. My devotee never perishes. So let's go for it. Jai, thank you very much, Prabhus, Matajis, everybody. That was very nice, very kind of you. And will we be meeting next week? Yes, next week. It's the week after. I can't. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you're not. On the 17th, you're not, but next Tuesday, it's yours.
And you'll be in Braj on the 17th. Is that right?
Not in the Braj, but I'll be traveling that day.
Okay. Well, lucky. Bring us back some dust.
We will. I will. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for
Very
your
much.
blessings. Only
Thank you
because
very
of
much.
your blessings, I'll be able to do it. So I
Right.
haven't done it in 60 years. So
Wow.
it's only because of the blessings. I'd like to congratulate one of our devotees over here, Ananda Vardhanadas. Prabhuji, our own Avinash Prabhuji, he got initiated just 2 or 3 days ago. Prabhuji,
Wow.
congratulations.
Haribol.
Can we chant 3 Haribols for Prabhuji? Prabhuji, if you can
Jai. Hare
switch on
Krishna.
video, we'd like to see your new Swaroop. But if
Jai,
not,
very
it's okay.
nice. Hari, Hari, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol.
Very nice.
Haribol.
Ananda Vardhana, what a nice
Ragini,
name.
both of them got
Hare
initiated.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Jai Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
As
Krishna.
they say, this is only a beginning. So this is what I understand. So it's only a beginning. So I'm
Jai.
just at the starting point. So
Excellent.
yes.
You know the old saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Jai. Very good. Well done.
And we are all behind you. So we are there behind you.
Yes,
To
the whole disciplic succession, the whole sampradaya is behind you, supporting you. Can you imagine? You have some big shots there behind you, keeping you going. Jai.
So I need blessings of all of you there, all
Jai.
the Vaishnavas. Thank you.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please congratulate Vishaka Mataji as well.
Will do.
Uh,
Thank
Very proud of you. And we are very fortunate to have your association on this group as well.
Jai, thank you very much for joining us.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Path Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Path Prabhu. Is it possible for you to end the session? We have run
Yes,
out
ma'am.
of time.
Yes. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Vidura Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Jai Prabhuji. Please
Thank you
accept
very much,
mine.
Prabhuji. Like you are telling, you are giving, you are not giving, you are just distributing the nectar, and we are just releasing all the things. Like Prabhupada
You're very
and
kind. You're very kind.
Prabhupada and all the things. You are doing very excellent class, Prabhuji. Also, we are thankful to you also. Also, we welcome Anandavardhan Prabhuji. He's so familiar with us, Prabhuji, and getting initiative is very nice. Like he told already, this is the first step of our spiritual journey.
Jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So that will getting association from you and getting the more and more knowledge.
Jai. Thank you.
So thanks very much.
I'm very
I
grateful
request
for
all
the
the
opportunity.
I request all the devotee, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for glorification of His grace. Vidura Prabhuji, please join. Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Rama Rama
Rama, Hare Hare.
One.
वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव
एव च
पतितानं
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो
वैष्णवेभ्यो
नमः
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
जय
Vidura Prabhu ki jai.
जय
Hari Hari Bol.
हरि बोल
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Jai Hari Bol.
Thank you for an excellent class, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.